we're recording.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to come back.
Yeah, there's so many things to dive into. It's I have to be mindful to take it slow.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to dive into this.
Yeah, because I had you on. It was that August lockdown. That was 2021.
Let me think.
Yeah, I was renting then. I was at the flat that I had in Tukuroa.
Yeah, and then we had another podcast after that. That was the Optometry podcast, right?
Did we do that? Did I do that with you?
Well? Yeah, you did it with me, but it wasn't recorded on Stag.
That's when you put on your Substack.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. That's the one. That was a useful podcast we had about optometry.
The memory I have from that is you were because I was in the due diligence phase, and you asked me,
yes,
what are you going to do? And I just was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And so, it's basically a year on, a little bit over a year on, and ended up had a bit of a look around for a little while, and then just ended up because basically it comes down to a lot of things. It comes down to capital, and having me and my now wife,
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. We just constantly have to remind ourselves we basically started again. So capital wise, we've got to be patient, and so I ended up moving essentially next door to Specsavers. But it's exciting there. I made it pretty clear where I'd been the last 9 years, and that I wanted to join them and do their pathway program, and starting that I think I go to Melbourne in April. So that'll be very interesting. It'll be an interesting 6 months to see what it's like, and is it possible, and does it make sense, and is that what I want to do? And just sort of gives me another sort of 6 months to keep saving, keep paying down our mortgage, and see where we're at, see where the market's at. See so many things. There's so many moving parts that go on when you're trying to make such a big decision like starting a practice. And you got to the end of the practicing certificate year and didn't renew, eh?
That's right. So when does the renewal start? 31st of March?
31st of March. So we just had a notification
coming
last week. Yeah.
It's been a year. So originally I actually paid for I think I did 1 year where I just paid for it myself, but I wasn't employed. And then then it initially came up with CPDs, because I didn't do any CPDs for the entire cycle. Well, I did, but I just didn't log them in. And I was thinking, is there much point logging it in? So I think just coming up to CPD time, which is October, I think, last year. Right. Yeah. I said to them, I want to kind of bring back my registration. Instead of being, active, I'll be
non-practicing
without CPD.
Okay.
So that's the bottom of the bottom. You're basically just getting an email from the board. That's really it.
Yeah. I went to NZAA last year. It was a really cool conference. It was mostly directed around pediatrics, and there was one really good presentation. Unfortunately, the person had to go back to India for a funeral, but he'd recorded a really good presentation on all the new glaucoma surgeries that are around at the moment, and they're trialing and still sort of teasing out the results of and the risks of and all that sort of stuff. So that was real fascinating. But yeah, and then it was also quite interesting. Craig's investment partners had a little bit of a what you need to retire discussion.
That's quite important. What did you learn?
Yeah. So when you account for inflation, to have a self-managing fund for a couple, you'd need somewhere around $4.8 million in fund. Okay. I was like, that's decent. Yeah. better keep on saving for retirement.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. Wow. 4.8 million. Does it account for children? Oh, I guess when you're retiring, you don't really care about kids at the time, right?
I think so. What that sort of means is that the fund is paying out your living allowance, and it's not diminishing. Whereas I think you could draw down for a couple on 3.8 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you're gonna live forever, right? And you're gonna have all this money when you die. I guess it
Yeah.
goes to the kids. Yeah.
And so if it's self-managing, then it basically becomes an inheritance when you do when you do die, which that'd be like a cool idea, but not necessarily important. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Actually, no. Coming back to that, would you prefer to have an inheritance for your children, for your family, or would you create a trust where you could like change people's lives? I don't know, like a foundation. What would you write? What would you want to do with your if you had a big package?
And I guess that's how it depends how long you live for, eh? And
Yeah.
like
100 years
how,
old.
yeah, okay. So I'm 100. Billy turned, it's interesting. Billy turns 6 tomorrow. So that's 65 years away. So she'll be, she'll be 71. She'll be hopefully retired.
Yeah. So that doesn't really make sense for like them, like your kids to have money, right? They're
Yeah.
too old to like really enjoy it, I guess.
Yeah. And so like, then and that's the idea of like wealth, isn't it? That hopefully you've done a good job for yourself and a good job for your children, and then they're doing a good job for their children and great grandchildren, and you like just kind of like get more and more security. And then the idea is that then you don't fucking fall to shit. Oh, who's the Waldorfs in America? Apparently
What
there
are the
was
Ward-offs? What's this about?
I don't know what they did originally. I don't know what they were involved in, but they had like some sort of family reunion of like 54 different families, and none of them were millionaires.
So I guess, yeah, if you're too wealthy, I guess life's too easy. So you don't have that grit and determination, even though like your life is set up really well. You just don't earn that grit and determination to like keep sustaining that level of wealth generation, I guess.
Yeah, or the motivation to grow things. I'm from a very middle class family, so I don't know what the ins and outs of that are.
That's
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
like you've got that you were born in New Zealand, Shivan?
I was born in New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Parents are Sri Lankan.
yeah. You went back. Was that your first time back, or
No, so I've been back many times.
you've been back many times? You went back with
Many
your parents,
times.
eh?
Yeah, yeah. So usually we travel with my family there. Usually 2 to 3 times once every 2, 3 years we'll head back. So last year especially, I went twice. One was just that was first time traveling back since COVID. The second time was actually for my grandfather's funeral. And the reason I'm asking you these questions, because like my grandfather's obviously he's got an inheritance, and like what are we going to do with that inheritance, like with us in the family? My grandmother's still alive, so basically she gets most of the money. But we're trying to figure out like what to do. I think a really cool thing would be to like kind of set up a trust or something, because my grandfather was involved in quite a few projects. So one project in particular, because in Sri Lanka there was a civil war. So there was one project my grandfather had where he would train widows of like wives who've lost their husbands due to the civil war, train them in sewing or particular skills so they can earn money. And that's a pretty cool like thing, right? So I think most of like my family are doing pretty well, like on my grandfather's side anyway. My uncles are doing really well. Like the money's probably better used to help the local community, like how it's being used. So yeah.
How big's your family?
How big's my family? So I'm an only child, but
Yeah.
on my mother's side, I've got, it's embarrassing. I'm on the spot here. I got three uncles and aunties on my mum's side.
Mhm.
My father's side, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so a family of, wait, no, my mother's side is family of 5. My father's side is a family of 4.
Mhm.
So yeah, nine in total, 9 including my parents. So yeah.
And then many of them immigrated, or some of them are still
Yeah,
in
so
Sri
my,
Lanka?
my mother's side is still in Sri Lanka. My father's side basically in the US. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you go? Does that entice you? The US? Like how did
US.
how did they get in?
Yeah.
Did they get like green cards or university or
Yeah, that's
something?
actually a good question. I don't know how they got in. I guess it might have been green card or through immigration at the time. Yeah, so I've been to the US like once. This was 10 years ago. So just to visit my cousins over there. So actually, when my grandfather passed away, which is sad,
Mm.
but that was the first time I was with pretty much my extended family on my father's side in 24 years. The last time we were together was when my aunt got married. So it's kind of crazy how like time flies, like
Mm.
meeting up with your extended family. Like, yeah, time just it goes on. So yeah, that was nice. But yeah, it is enticing going to the US.
What are their sort of outlooks on life? Was there much variance between your dad in New Zealand and them in the US?
Oh, it's about the same, like in a developed country, right? Like, yeah, obviously there's an immigrant mentality, right? You come with like not much, and then you work really hard to get to where you want to be, so you can set up that pathway for your children. So really, like, it's fun immigrating to a new place, I guess, for them, like the opportunity that they see. But they're really doing it for their children. So we're kind of like the hopes and dreams, like the expectations, they're all lying on our shoulders. So yeah, it's quite scary. But in terms of the difference between New Zealand and the US, it's basically the same.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, US has their own culture, but it's coming here, setting up your children very well so they can have a bright future. Because things back at home weren't great, you know, like Sri Lanka, the Civil War, the opportunities aren't there versus like here.
Are they political? Like the only sort of ideas I have around this is like Shamath, who was with Facebook, and then Ramit Sethi, who's Indian, I think.
Yeah.
And there's one other person. Anyway, yeah, who's also Indian guy in the States, and they seem quite sort of
conservative leaning.
But also
Yeah.
not, because they're like they're all involved with San Francisco, so they're like quite progressive, but like they're like have
I don't know what you mean, but they're
there.
progressive, but they're rich. Yeah, at the same time.
They're like economically fiscal, but progressive ideologically.
And they're ideological. Yeah. Like like obviously they make a lot of money, so they're going to care about entrepreneurism. Like capitalism is good.
Yeah.
And then, but they're also very progressive in their kind of thoughts and thinking. They want to push things forward. I guess that comes with like being, I call it like zero generation, like me coming here. So my parents come in with like their culture and they want to sustain that, versus I kind of want to break away from that and sort of because there's no one like me, right? If that makes sense. There's no one like me who wants to be a Kiwi and not have that strong traditional sense. So yeah, you could say I'm kind of like, I have that kind of progressive ideology. My parents never really shared too much political stuff back at home. I don't know what their political stance is like now, but yeah, they never really shared stuff back at home because I think it's quite shameful. Well, they didn't want me to get scared about what was going on back at home, which I kind of regret. I really wish I knew what was going on. I kind of didn't really take much interest, Ryan, when I grew up, about like the Civil War situation. The only reason I know about it now,
it was a guerrilla upheaval way.
Yeah, so in Sri Lanka, there's two ethnic groups. So there's the Tamil and Sinhalese. So you could say it's kind of like when we were colonized, and like, you know, the whole point of divide and conquer, like you try and get like two groups they end up battling each other once
Was that by Britain?
Yeah, so yeah, so Sri Lanka was colonized by Portuguese. I don't know which order, but it was Dutch, Portuguese, and then the English, then the British. It was part of the British Empire. Eventually, like Sri Lanka gain independence. It's like then the minority groups start fighting with each other. So I don't know if that's the case, but like I think if you think about Rwanda, for example, right? Rwanda was a French colony, I believe. Rwanda, no?
Yeah, I know Rwanda.
Yeah. Was it a French colony? Was it a French colony?
Let's stop spitballing and find out.
Yeah, so I'm just like the movie Hotel Rwanda. So they're two ethnic groups involved in, from my understanding, is it Utsi and Tutu?
Yeah.
Tutu, yeah. So like that's kind of like divide and conquer too, right? So coming back to Sri Lanka, two ethnic groups, Tamil and Sinhalese. So Sinhalese have the majority, and generally the religion of Sinhalese people is Buddhism. For Hindus, for Tamils, it's either Hindu or you got the Moorish Tamil, which is Muslim. So obviously, like, there's going to be a divide in culture, religion. There's going to be some conflict once the big player leaves. So
with Rwanda, it looks like German, Belgium.
Belgium, sorry, not French, Belgium.
Yeah, and then 18th of September 1962, admitted to the UN, and then the current constitution, 26th of May 2003.
Okay.
Yeah, chaos.
That's interesting. Thanks for clarifying. But yeah, so it tends to be chaos, right? When you get colonized and you hand it back to the peoples, and the peoples aren't united, they're not one, they're always separated. So yeah, civil war is bound to happen. Like even with India, right? India was going to split up into multiple states. So obviously Pakistan and India aren't one country; they're separate countries. Then you got Bangladesh, and even like at one point, so Rajasthan, Punjab were going to separate as well, because they're different ethnic groups. So yeah, that was the nature of Sri Lanka. War is a bad thing for the people, so that's the only people who suffer, right, are the civilians. So hence that sparked one of the reasons why my parents wanted to leave. So yeah, coming back to my grandfather actually. So my grandfather worked for the UN. He worked in fisheries. So yeah, he kind of thought Sri Lanka's a mess. So he moved to, I can't remember where in Africa, but he moved to some parts of Africa.
Yeah.
So my dad actually lived in parts of Africa, and but he went to school in India, like boarding school in India, because like my grandfather was moving around quite a lot. So yeah, even then, the idea of my family was always to be immigrating or leaving Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
But my grandfather wanted to stay in Sri Lanka. Yeah.
I had a little chat about this with Dr. Pran Yoganathan, and his family moved from Sri Lanka to Zimbabwe, and originally in Zimbabwe it was reasonably okay.
Yeah.
and then similar thing happened, and then I think his dad asked him and his brother, where do you want to live? And Pram was like, let's go to either New Zealand or Australia, and they moved to Dunedin. And yeah, again, it must have been that immigrant mentality, because Pram was so ahead of this in his schooling that he got into med school, I think, at 16 from Otago Boys.
Wow, incredible. Okay.
Pretty unreal. He was at school with Richie McCaw.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
two goats at the time. Yeah.
Fair enough, man. Yeah, I think it comes down to the fact, like, it's going to be because my parents always instilled, like, you have to work hard to get a future. Like, you're not from here. And I don't know if you agree with this, Ryan, but I think there's a lot of nepotism in New Zealand. Like, if you're established here, it's easy for you to get a job. You know, if your family works here, yeah, it's easy for that to happen. But for you, like me being from somewhere else, like I don't have like family who work here, so I can't just go to a family business. And the people just don't trust you as much, you know. So you have to have some sort of paper to back you, right? That could be a professional degree, like optometry, you name it, you know. So that's how we've been brought up. So that's why we had to work hard academically, because that's like the route to success and to have a happy life.
You've sort of toyed with it a few times about Palmy Boys, like high expectations, mostly white school, but it's public school. It's all boys. There's like the big testosterone value in it. Like, have you been able to resolve your high schooling, or it's still like
okay, I'm thinking about I've been thinking about this quite a lot, talking to a lot of friends who obviously I went to school with. Yeah, at the time Boys High was fine. Boys High, how do I describe it? So Palmy Boys, it's very conservative at the time, very traditional values. You said it was like a majority, you know, Europeans. Like, it just comes down to the demographics of Palmerston North, I guess, mainly like compared to Auckland, for example, which has a lot more immigration. Yeah, it is a public school as well. Probably controversial to say, but like it's probably one of the better performing schools, like it's academically on paper, in the area. All boys school. Wasn't really testosterone. I don't know. Like it was fun. It was a funny dynamic. We had streaming in Boys High. So essentially, before you enter the school, you sit an exam, and that exam determines where you're going to be streamed in the class. I don't know if other schools do this.
Yeah, we did it in my school.
Yeah.
Somehow, even though I came from like small Catholic primary school, where I don't know, but I must have managed to tick enough answers to get top band. But I was just like turned up, and I was like,
you're a smart man, Ryan.
Oh, no, not really.
Yeah, so thinking about
it depends on what percentage of population you surrounded yourself with when it comes to optometry school. Yeah, not so much. Yeah, it was story of my life. A slightly larger fish in a very small pond was always quite helpful. And then I moved to Auckland. I was like, holy jeepers.
Yeah, it's a different ball game. There's so many smart people up there. But yeah, so you're kind of, if you're in like the higher classes, I guess you're insulated more. Like there's no, you know, the typical American jock culture.
Yeah.
Like you don't really, I never experienced that. Like there was some, you know, some people like yourself, very sporty, very academic, yet the combination of the two. There wasn't really a popular group. And like, because you could focus on academics, like if there was a goal in mind, that was my experience. there probably wasn't a shared experience. Like if you're maybe, it's kind of like capitalism, like a small scale capitalism, where like the top kind of do pretty well. I was lucky because I was academic. I could focus on academics, you know, like I had some goal in mind. But like if you're in the middle somewhere, or just like an average student, like you don't really have an identity, right? You're not like you're not praised for your sports. There's a lot of praise for academic success, but then you're just kind of like in the middle. Like what do? You're kind of like the forgotten middle child. If you're like lower down the scale, lower down the scale academically, you at least get some support. Yeah, so it's a funny dynamic. Not having any girls there, it's like a double-edged sword, right? I guess like if you're in a school full of guys, it really pushes you. The competitiveness is good. Like, it really pushes you to do well. You don't really do things for the opposite gender, for example. You're not concerned about that, so you can kind of express yourself better. I guess that was like the argument for like doing performance arts. So you don't really care about looking silly in front of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
The downside, I believe, is like your maturity is stunted because you need the opposite sex to like. It's a double-edged sword, right? You can explore. You can
hold you to that standard, eh? Like,
exactly. Yeah. Or you sound like you're not like a complete idiot or a fool when you like go to university. So yeah.
Did you compete in any academic competitions? Like we had like maths competitions. I ended up going to a geography competition.
Wow,
we showed up to Waikato Uni, and St Kitts were there, and I think it was a little bit like that at Boys High where you did this, but the St Kitts team had already done level 1 geography the year before, and they were doing Cambridge, and so they absolutely schooled everybody. and then there was us that was representing the whole of the South Island, and we're at the inverted commas New Zealand geography competition. But interestingly, most of the questions were about the North Island, so we got last. Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's a bias in the quiz, right?
Yeah.
It was like to show like because I guess it's representation, right? Like most people live in the North Island, right? Most people live in Auckland. Most people live in the North Island, so that's just what gets asking questions. I guess that's unfair, actually.
Yeah, it was back up. Like, yeah, I remember we all got different crew neck sweatshirts, and we had this most hideous like forest green thing. They think I ever wore that jumper ever again.
Jamie put up the photos.
Yeah, I know,
one day, Ryan.
No, I swear there'd be no photo of that. I think that was that. That must have been 2003. So, yeah, this people would be lucky to hold a digital camera then.
Nice, yeah, a while ago.
Did you have social media while you were at high school?
I think Facebook just got introduced.
2007.
2007.
No, 8. More 2008, wasn't it?
2008. That's when it really got really wild. So that was 5th form. So I think I remember having it. Maybe 4th form actually. I was an early adopter. I don't know. To technology. So that was like a big. Because back then people just had cell phones. I didn't really have a cell phone in high school. I just used it to communicate with my parents if I was going out somewhere.
Yeah.
But that was really a change, right? Like because I was like a nerd back then. Like I'll be using the computer for things. But then cool people would never use online things until Facebook came around. Like I remember seeing this guy like pop up on Facebook. He was like a jock, but I wouldn't expect him to see on Facebook. That was like a really big change, right? Like people using like cool people using the internet.
Yeah, I had MSN and Bebo.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that was a bit like you. That was sort of my 5th form, year 11, whatever you want to call it. And I think I got my 2280 in about year 10, year 11. Yeah. And so again, that was like the days where you'd burn through 1,000 texts in like 1 week. And man. What am I going to do for the rest of the month?
There's like Vodafone Telecom.
Still your parents' cell phone, and so you can send messages. Yeah, and then I remember sitting in my dorm in Grafton, and my friend had been in either Canada or the US on exchange, and she burst into my dorm room and was like, "I'm signing you up for Facebook." And I just remember like that last 3 months I was studying as well, so I couldn't take enough time to dive into it. Just being like, what the fuck did she even do? But by the time I got to Dunedin, it was Facebook was on.
That was wild. Yeah, I think I remember joining the what do you call it, like the halls, and like they had their own Facebook group, so you could like just join and like everyone who was there. So that's Yeah, it's crazy looking back at those times, right? And then you've seen Social Media, Social Network, right? The movie.
Yeah, I think so. If I
Yeah.
have, I've only got watched it once, and
Okay.
I think I haven't watched it. I think while I was at Juggert's house, him and the
Yeah.
girls were watching it, and I sort of
Yeah.
caught it. Yeah, I don't think I've actually watched it properly.
Okay, you have to watch it, man. Because okay, I am obsessed about. Well, since I've gone to the software field, I'm just so obsessed by like the history of, even though it's only 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, like
Yeah,
that just process of because like the internet wasn't very popular back then, but now it's super popular.
well, it's in your
Um,
pocket, isn't it?
exactly, yeah, and like how I don't know, this guy just came up with an idea and he executed that on the idea and built something that like billions of people are going to use. It's just it blows my mind, like that
But
startup
what's
idea.
also interesting that like we talked about there, 2007, Facebook's on your computer. It's a computer-based application.
Yeah.
Then so that was
Or
what,
web based, typically
web-based.
web based.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So like 2 years into Dunedin, I used to study there with YouTube video, big 1 hour or 2 hour playlists going on from YouTube. There was some absolute filth on the internet. Like I've talked about like
yeah,
meat spin and blueberry pancake
yeah,
and all these things that people used to punk each other
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in the library in Dunedin with.
yeah,
Um, and then I went back to Auckland and I was going to buy the Nokia. It was like a slider. You like turned it on
yeah,
its side and flipped it and had a keypad. And I was
yeah.
in the Vodafone in Queen Street, and the salesman did a very good job. He's like, "Nah, you need this. This is the iPhone 3GS. This is what
Yeah,
you need." And I got the
yeah,
iPhone, and I went back to my mates, and he had that Nokia that I was going in to buy. He was like, "Oh, what is that?" And I was like, well, "I've got no idea," and was like trying to get my head around all these little tablets that were on this touch screen thing. And
yeah.
yeah, I think
Welcome to apps, mobile
yeah,
apps.
mobile apps by about February or so the next year, I'd had it in my pocket at a rugby game at Eden Park. They had been pissing with rain, and I managed to fry the thing.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it got water damage. Was my first iPhone 3GS, and then yeah, I think I had yeah, I temporarily had a Nokia or a Samsung or something, and then yeah, ever since I've had iPhones.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, even the iPhone coming out, it just changed culture, like how we do things, like crazy amount, right? Like it just blows my mind, you know. So obviously Facebook comes out now. People are more open in sharing things. Like
Yeah,
your grandmother's like, oh, well, no, you don't know your grandmother, but you know, like your older relatives are on Facebook, you know, and this is like you would never get that 20 years ago because they wouldn't know how to use technology in that way, or technology was only for people who are, you know, skilled in it or nerds, you could say. But now like it's open to everyone. Then when iPhone came out, that changed how we build applications, right? Because everything was web based. But
yeah,
now we've got the mobile, right? So your website has to be mobile friendly, or you need to build an app, you know. And then Instagram, like social media changed from web based into, you know, things like Instagram, where you take a photo, you can share that photo online. You know, it's like it's just crazy how like technology's shaped how we do things. You know, and things like I would say Instagram has a cultural phenomenon on what we do, right? Like people are more, if people do things, they want to be able to do things that are like Instagrammable, right? So that's where like there's like hobbies and like things you can do that you can't really show off to people. And then when we do something, we want to do it so we can take a photo so we can like show other people. Does that
mm,
make sense? And that would never have happened if we didn't have Facebook. People wouldn't share things online. You just talk to your friends about what you did, right?
yeah.
And you got like then you take it to the next level with Instagram. You can share like your experience. So yeah,
And the other
it
thing
blows
as
my
well,
mind, Ryan.
has been I don't know if it's the D value or the value of storage. Like you think about that first iPhone 3GS, three
Yeah,
gigabytes, like you could not operate that anymore because it'd just be full. Like
yeah,
your apps would fill it. And so
yeah,
then there was like the 10 gig, 20 gig. And then when we sort of got to about 60 gig, that was sort of like enough memory to run the phone. And
yeah.
now, isn't the latest one got a terabyte on it? Is that
I've
right?
got no idea. Probably, yeah,
But anyway, it just becomes where you have got enough storage in that small device to do anything on there.
yeah,
And so then the same with like businesses, like servers in businesses. That was like the big thing, like being able to
yeah,
store all your data. And then we have things like Zero or like AWS that you can then store your business in the cloud. But then we
yeah.
have your
Cloud,
Yeah.
computing on the cloud, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but then we
having
have
your
the
own, like,
opposite thing of security with that. I was reading your Substack this afternoon, and you were talking about
okay, yeah.
how like you building with iSpace the things that you've got to have in place before you get to the customer interface, which is me.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and like how you're saying that, like, oh, the customer interface and making things look pretty and usable is like what you're really passionate about. But you've got to do these first two steps, like make sure the security's right. and make sure
I get,
the data is in the right place.
exactly. I get reminded every single time, you know. But coming back to you're talking about how, you know, like technology improves, like it doubles. It's Moore's law, for example, talks about
Yeah,
every 2
cool.
years. Yeah, like things double, like the compute power doubles. It's sort of, I think it's sort of marketing as well in a way. So you know how like they had Pentium 2 chips, Pentium 3, Pentium 4, and they had the numbers like 4 gigahertz, 3 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Like they're ways to quantify. Like if you were to sell something, it's a way of quantifying to like someone who wants to buy it. This is how it's better, you know, like it's just
Yeah, I
number
remember
value,
my
right?
first Toshiba.
Yeah.
My girlfriend at the time's dad built it for me, and like
Oh wow.
I think he didn't put much storage on it, but he put heaps of processing and RAM in there.
Yeah.
And he's like I could have played online and streamed with that laptop.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
In
It's powerful.
in 2005, it was powerful, but like being a student and wanting to like download stuff, and also as we were talking about just then, the advent of music and things that you want, it was before streaming, so you needed to have them somewhere. I kept clogging up my computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Exactly.
but I remember him talking in like those numbers, you know.
Those numbers, yeah, but like that's a way of quantifying if something is worth buying, like because like you buy something based on these specs, but then it gets to a point where things are so fast, like it doesn't need to get any faster. Like for example, take like the laptop, like people, like you would want a faster laptop, but eventually like, we've got smartphones. Smartphones are portable, but they're not as fast as a laptop. So the technology has shifted, right, to something that's more convenient.
Yeah.
And then like eventually it's going to be and then like I said, the more we want more memory, more numbers, like increasing with the phone, eventually it gets to a point where it's going to peak, right? Then that's the next thing. What's the next innovation, you know?
So does Moore's law compounds, eh? Is that right? Yeah,
That's
so that's
exponential growth. Yeah.
yeah.
It is Moore's law, right? You might have to do a quick Google search.
No, I think you're
to
right.
make sure I'm right. Moore's law.
I think we go with that, and if people listen to this yelling at us, then that's awesome. Please leave a comment on how stupid we are.
Yeah. Exactly. So before Moore's law, there's this thing called the Zuckerberg effect, which is just like Moore's law, like talking about like social media. I can't remember where I heard this from, but it's called the Zuckerberg effect. Essentially, it just means that every X number of years, people share more things, double the amount they're willing to share. So before Facebook came out, people would just share their name. Like people would be too scared to like have their full names, right? You know, when you go to like chat forums back in the day, people would just use random avatar names, right? But now people have their full name on there, and they share photos of themselves. They share where they work, their location, things they did, parties they've been to, where they work. You know, so people could become more and more willing to share things, which sounds screwed up, but that's just how things are.
That's interesting. On that Moore's law, it's even like we're talking about. I think the new iPhone has terabyte in it, and like we said, it's gone 3, 6, 10, 20, 60, 1,000.
Yeah.
And then we're like, and because we suck at exponential growth, we're like, oh, just heaps.
Yeah, just heaps. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't even need to worry about it anymore. it just works. You can watch 4K, no worries. Stream it. It's fine.
Yeah, we take it for granted, right? Like, and going back in history, like we didn't have those like that amount of computation or that ability. Like, take Netflix for example. Netflix, you would say it's a huge company, right? Netflix is also a huge social phenomenon, right? People watch shows on there. It's like now we're in the stage where we could watch shows from anywhere in the world. Most people watch the same things or the same content, right? It wasn't like one channel. Well, we're kind of going back to that, right? It used to be like, okay, a bit of a sidetrack. Like you had your own algorithm. Like I guess your LinkedIn algorithm and my LinkedIn algorithm are two different things, right? They're kind of like my algorithm caters for my content that I see, and your algorithm caters for content that you see. But before that, we had the one news channel, right, that everyone watched. But Netflix is kind of like a full circle, where like we're going from individualized content back to like Netflix, where everyone's kind of watching the same shows. The majority of people are watching the same shows. But besides that, with Netflix, you wouldn't have Netflix around 30 years ago because people didn't have broadband, and we didn't have unlimited data, right? So streaming would be nearly impossible. You run out of data before you even watched like one show. But now because of like the timing, you could say it's timing or innovation. We forgot fast internet. Most providers provide you with almost infinite download, right? So that allows us to watch Netflix. And that links to a cultural phenomenon. But then there's two things that come from that, Ryan. 2 points. History is kind of repeating itself. The one news channel, individual algorithms, back to we're all pretty much watching the same content from around the world. Another phenomenon too is the timing of things, like technology. Like you can think it's like skill to come up with this particular thing, but it's also timing as well. Like Netflix wouldn't be around 40 years ago. It needed to be in place because of the previous technology leading up to that point. But these things fascinate me, Ryan. I don't know how to express it to you.
No, it does fascinate me too. And like where I was sort of going with the amount of processing and the amount of storage you have, like I have been thinking about how you could run a practice now, and how you could communicate what you're doing now. Like I think we're at the stage where you could, for each individual person, video through your slit lamp, share their OCT data and trending, and like is it DICOM that OCT uses, and show their tracking and show their data, and then we're on the cusp of inputting the likes of Tuku Eyes into it, that then connects into their medical data, and just like, fuck, it's so exciting to empower the patient, not just in their eye health, but in their like overall health. And like eye space as well. Like it's just awesome that you could grab the map of someone's eye, and the better the map, the better the accuracy of that lens, and then you order it in and you slap it on and the person sees, and or like you put it on, send the person away 1-2 nights, they come back and the ortho-K is effective, and you're like, awesome. We're like,
that's crazy. It's been a blessing working for iSpace, Ryan. I'm not just saying that, right? It's been an absolute blessing. I remember using the tools beforehand. Like, you could just order it. Like, I remember ortho-K just being it wasn't complicated. Like, we had those sliders, the Paragon CRT sliders.
Yeah, that's how I learned self-taught myself in Australia with Paragon. I watched like a webinar, I think it was, and it was like, or take this topography. We'll send you a couple of lenses either side. Like, look at them. Then, like, we'll adjust things. I don't even think I had a slit camera, but again, back to iPhones, you can slap it on and take photos. That's what I do. That's cool, why I do it. As Specsavers for my empirical fitting of normal IGPs. And it's just it's probably good about going backwards. I just empirically fit some lenses based on K readings. It's gnarly, but like, and then to like move shackies and Tim's like, oh, we use iSpace to do all that K. It was just like bang, bang, bang. We're like, holy cow.
It's crazy, Like, so I always thought, Paragon CT, it's going to be 6:9 vision, probably not the best, but then you end up with iSpace. The lenses, like, most of the time fit first time really well, great results. They come back 6:5 vision, it's just, and because that comes back,
That was that first lens selection. It was kind of like get them good enough and look out for like landing or too much clearance, not enough pressure, so you didn't get enough change or whatever. Like what's now the refraction? Oh yeah, that's what we need to change the lens by to get the effect. And then again, like you say, then you had to get them back again, and like, have I gone too far? Is it now landing and like pressing on their cornea and staining and increasing risk of damage?
Exactly. Or like a massive fitting set, like all these lenses, but then you don't need that. Just the topography, send the maps away, make sure you get a really good map, and then the really smart people the team at iSpace would shape that lens, make sure it's right, and then ship it off. So
does the rest of the digital team have an understanding of optometry?
The senior people do. Like, for us juniors, we're kind of, me, like, because I've worked in the field before, we're kind of getting a grasp of it. So so like our team structure is quite interesting. So we're basically structured in a way. We've got our development team, and we've got like the clinical team. And the clinical team, obviously, they're the face of the company. Like, they will help people fit the lenses. They interface with the lab, and they basically drive the the clinical part of the practice, and like we're kind of the development team. We work on the software side of things. So that's like the desktop software, the web application that you would use, like the portal that you log into. So we're kind of working on that sort of stuff, that sort of things. And yeah, like my boss I work for, he just knows everything, you know, because he was there at the beginning. So it was founded by Lachlan Hoy and Jake Brown. So both of them founded the company together. So they're there from the beginning, and he kind of knows everything. Yeah.
Yeah, Lachlan's a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, exciting. And I'm gonna back to your Substack.
Yeah.
What you one of your annoying questions was, do you cut weight?
This is weightlifting, right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, diving into weightlifting. Yeah.
Yeah.
You actually do cut weight.
So you do have a weight target to compete at?
Okay. Yeah. So I was keeping it under 81s, but it doesn't really matter for me, right? I'm not going to go for nationals. I'm just there to lift weight for fun. So people do cut weight actually. Like generally for weightlifting, you train at slightly higher than your weight class. So if you're 81, for example, it depends on the person, but majority of people, like my experience, they train a bit higher at, so they'll be like 84, 85. And then before a competition, they'll cut down for weight. The reason you'll be a bit heavier is you can eat more food. A lot of weight you lose before a comp is generally water weight, or just you've had you've gone to the toilet, that sort of stuff. So you want to lose that weight, and you do that just before a competition. So there's like ways you can do it. I'm not too sure. Like I think it's just there's water weight. You can hop in the sauna. You can just eat a bit less for the last few weeks, and then yeah, then you weigh in. Usually weigh-ins 2 hours before your actual lifting starts. Ooh. So you try and like, you don't eat, don't drink within reason, right?
What are the brackets?
What are the brackets? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. Because it's changed. So there's 81. For me, you can go down to 73, which is a bit too much. It changes too, because I think with Paris Olympic, there's only 5 categories.
Yeah.
There's usually 10. You have to Google this. But there's 5 in the Paris Olympics because they've reduced the number of medals for weightlifting. Long story. But for me, it'll be 73. So 73 would be less, like we'd lower than 81s. And then there's 89s, 96, 102, 109, 109 plus. And then the other way, 70, I don't know what's lighter than 73. I can't remember. 73, 69, I'm not sure. It's pretty bad because we sit an exam where you got to like remember the weight classes. I just can't remember it. I just Google it.
What do you have to sit the exam for?
So if you want to become a referee, so if you want to do like the flags, you got to do an exam for that. So I did that last year. I can't remember the weight classes off the top of my head. And there's men's, there's women's weight classes too, and they're different. They're different as well. So yeah, hard to remember. Plus it changed. I think 2014 they changed the weight classes. They do that every so often.
So then how do you think about going to a meet? You're competing against yourself, like you snatched your body weight. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was the goal. So I had the goal of, okay, I want to snatch more than my body weight. And that was like the goal of the competition, not to get any medals, to win. Because Ryan, I hate it, man. I tell people I'm competing this weekend. They're like, oh, did you win? Did you do this? Like, it's just a fun like comp, you know?
Yeah. It gives you a purpose to train, right?
Yeah, purpose to train, exactly, right? Because it gets boring just training, doing weightlifting for like no goal in mind. So if you have a competition, you can sort of focus your training. Like I've got a coach, his name is Cullen Helms. He's down in Otago actually. So he heads the club there. There's Otago weightlifting. He kind of runs that club. But he's also my online coach. And we talk about this, like, what's the point of competing? Competing gives you like a purpose to train. So it makes things fun. You can sort of set your training up to peak for a competition, which makes it fun as well. Like you're not just lifting weights all the time. You can split your training up into different cycles. So for example, blocks. So you can have a block where you just focus on getting stronger, and then you have another block where you focus on getting better at the lifts. So it makes things fun. It's not monotonous. So
how broad is the strength component? Are you doing like partial pieces of the lift, or is it just like deadlift and upward row and shoulder press, like real sort of
good question. Depends on how often you train. So I only train 3 times a week for weightlifting specifically, and because I train so little, like you should be training, I think maybe 5 times. There's like this week can fit in more exercises, but generally I just do like on 3 days of lifting. I'll do on day one, I'll do a snatch, some strength work. That could be squats, pulls, so pulling the bar. Pulls are basically deadlifts, but only up to, you don't do the entire lift. Some strength work. That
So
could be
high
doing
pull.
like
You do a high pull.
high. Oh no, just here, I guess. Not all the way up.
Off blocks or off the
From the
deck
floor.
or both?
I used to, from the floor. I used to do block work, but not much. So I just mainly, because I'm doing so little training towards weightlifting, just do the entire movements, the snatches. One day I'll do cleans, strength work associated with that, and third day I'll do jerks, strength work associated with that. And then when it comes to a comp, we kind of do more snatches. Instead of doing a clean and a jerk on a separate day, we combine it together, have clean and jerk on the same day. And then with the squats, right now I'm more of a strength base. I'm doing more volume. Volume for me is like 5 reps, but I'm generally coming up to a comp. We'll be doing like 3s, 2s, doubles, singles at a heavier weight.
So when you're doing the full movement, you are doing a number of reps.
That's correct. Yeah, so mainly doubles or triples. That's it.
And that's based off
no more than triple, actually, just maybe doubles.
And that's based off a percentage of your goal weight.
Yeah, so that's programmed for me. I actually don't know what the percentages are. Like I've kind of, so the benefit of online coaches, you don't really think about the program. I just let someone else think about that for me, because I just do the work, right?
Yeah.
If it was up to me, that's another warning or danger, right? If you try and program yourself, depending on who you are, you might. I think for me, I just try and do too much. Like I'll have this thing in my head where I've got to just do better than I did last time, right? But then you can't continuously get better forever linearly. You're going to need to cycle, right? So that's where you build up, have a drop down week, build up, drop down week, build up and drop down. So that's something I wouldn't know how to program. The numbers, like, it's just too much overhead to think about. So that's where a coach comes in handy. But yeah, it could be a percentage. I'm not sure. We generally have like a 5-week mesocycle. So that's building up to what we call overreaching weeks. That's where I try and do heavy weights, could miss potentially, be scared when I go to the gym because I've got to hit these weights. You know, that's kind of, and then a week after that, you'll do like a kind of a back off or a deload week and then build up again.
How do you feel about those, that possibility of missing? Does that weigh on your psyche?
For a competition, like the first lift is the hardest lift, the first snatch. It's never ever about how strong I am. It's just the nerves.
Yeah,
I think about that a lot. Missing it during training, it doesn't really happen because I don't really push myself that much. Like,
how do you attack your 3 lifts?
How do I take the 3 lifts? Good question. Like, because I'm not okay. How I do it is I enjoy competing. Like, competing is fun. I like people watching me lift. It's weird. I always perform better when I'm competing. Not all the time. I always perform better when I'm competing. How I think about it is I try and break. Okay, so warm up is really key. I'm not an expert, Ryan, but this is how I do it in my head. Warm up is a key part. That's where you really focus on your technique. The last 2 lifts of your warm up, the last lift of your warm up, you're really thinking 1 cue or just nothing. You're just thinking about the habit you built up prior, and just kind of sort of trusting yourself. The 1 cue, I sometimes think of 1 cue. 1 cue is like just okay, I'm just going to have my shoulders over the bar. That's it. Try not to overthinking it. Once you start overthinking things, that's where things fall apart and becomes really dangerous when you're going for heavy attempts. Like, that's where you shouldn't really be thinking. I just lift the weight. That's what I'm thinking about. Lift the weight.
And
what about you, Ryan? Do you have any kind of, do you train a similar way or have any similar kind of thoughts?
I haven't done. Well, I actually haven't done much Olympic lifting in a very long time. I did that, back to the strength. I did that nice little pocket of I tested, and then I did a month of deadlift training.
Yeah, nice.
Really simple. I was trying to do 5x5 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So the stack I have is 170 kgs, and
Nice.
I tested that as a pyramid. So what did I do? I went 70, 110. I might have done some ones in between, all 5 reps. And so then 110, so then you're adding 30, 140, then you're adding 20, 160, and then 170. And when I tested, the 160 was very hard. I did 5, and the 170 I did 3. And then I needed a decent rest, and I think I did 1 or 2 at 170, and then 2 or 3 at 160, and then I did 5s going down, taking the weights off.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, right, so now I'll train.
There's a lot of
And
volume. Wow. There's a lot of
yeah,
reps.
well, that is the tough thing about doing that pyramid is by the time you're doing 5 reps, you're like grip starting to
Yeah.
go. You're
Yeah.
really getting that low back fatigue, and you're getting higher and higher, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
In grip especially, like that initial momentum of the bar, as you know, is relying on being able to actually transfer that energy from your feet and your legs into the bar and lift it up. And now I'm a bit like you were saying with Olympic lifting, I'm not even on that level with powerlifting. Like I just have trained, and the training of that has been the purpose for field sports.
Yeah. I guess
But
training. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, why do you train? Like, I guess it's for like, do you do it for health? Like, you obviously you talk about sports. Are you going to be the next All Black, or why do we train?
Yes, at the time at uni, that was training to be a better 15s player, but my ultimate goal was to be a better sevens player. And so I got into that Southland squad in my second last year of uni, and then the last year of uni, it was like, can I actually make the team to go to nationals? And again, I missed out. And then the same when it came around when I was living in Christchurch and I managed to get into the Canterbury squad, it was like, can I make the team? I need to like. It was ripshit and bust. I was like, I just need to get like a little bit faster. So there's been a lot of hype around at the moment about Bronco scores. I think I did like a 423.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, and we got really lucky that Sam Dixon, who's playing, I think might be the captain again, playing over in Vancouver at the moment. Like he came and ran that Bronco with us. And yeah, it was pretty awesome to do a real good Bronco, but Sam was kind of like between me and one other guy who was a centre, so he just had that little bit of extra speed. And ultimately I was non-traveling reserve. But yeah, why did I train for a long time? It was for rugby.
Yeah. And why do you train now?
Why do I train now? So
yeah,
I train now for hunting. So that's where I'll do a lot of crossover in that I'll go running and then I'll do strength. And I would love to be doing CrossFit because you do those things. You do big cardios and you do
huge variety, right? More variety of things.
Yeah. And the strength that you need for hunting has got to be quite a lot of muscle endurance. So that's where doing as much as like a 21-15-9 of what would you be using? You'd be maybe using 50 kgs for a snatch of 21-15-9.
Yeah.
To be able to hold those reps and have some other discipline in between it, that I think even though that workout might end up being like 9 or 10 minutes, or maybe even less, but anyhow, that sort of skill set of like gritting away something that's heavy for an extended period of time.
It's a mental thing, right? It's mental,
and then there's that, and then like you were saying with programming, it'd just be great to rock up to a box and just be like, what are we doing today?
Rather than think about it yourself.
Whereas like
a lot easier.
I have rings, I have bands, I have a kettlebell, I have some dumbbells, and I have my Olympic bar.
And how do you structure your programming? Do you have like a coach, or do you just do whatever you feel? Or
so for the last like year and a half, I've been going into the garage and just being like, what do I want to do? Which is probably bad, and probably my performance is probably at a bit of a low. Last year, me and some guys just on Instagram, we gave ourselves challenges each month. That was, I don't know if people were watching, that was the Circle of Savages. So that was with Ryan Nicholson, who's down in Cutterton, Kane Briscoe, who's a dairy farmer over in Taranaki. He was the main person that would come up with the challenges, and that was reasonably good. But again, you get the situation where life gets in the way, and you end up cramming a challenge into the end of the month and stuff like that. And
fair enough.
So, and again, it was one of those things where like, what am I doing? Like it was training for life, training for health, training for versatility. But yeah, it would be good to have an event, and that was where I came unstuck. I paced my mate in the Topol 100, so I needed to do a 26k run, and then I think Kane, he's doing Old Ghost Road Ultra soon, and so he was like, well, I need to be running.
They're insane. What drives these people, man?
I don't know what you'd say drives you to do an ultra. It's a definite test, and it's mostly mental. So you do need to check your ego to a certain extent, because you've got to make the run manageable, or else you're not going to make it. But then you're still going to run into parts of the run where it gets too much for you, and you're going to feel like it's insurmountable. And so that's where it's massively mental, because you've got to overcome that. You've got to keep pushing. You know, when it comes to an event that, like one lift or 3 lifts, but one lift at a time, it's condensed, and all of those trainings to push and to sort of build strength, that's where the hardness probably comes in. So I'd imagine I'd imagine that it's more similar to your training than it is to the event.
That makes sense to me. I see what you mean. Because weightlifting is really like, it's kind of, you got 3 attempts, got 3 shots at doing this thing, right? Versus like, it's an ultra is like, it's a long shot, like it's just like the actual mental effort is in the event, right? Versus like when you're doing like weightlifting or like some event where when you're given 3 attempts, there's mental effort involved in the attempts, but you also need that marathon, and there's marathon in the training as well.
Exactly right. That's what I put it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, but like something like question, right? Like these guys you talk about, they lift heavy weights, they're doing like amazing things, ultra marathon. Like not many people on the planet do an ultra marathon, but for me, I just lift these tiny weights, man. There's like girls who can lift more than me. It's just, I don't know why I'm doing this. Should I push myself more? I don't know. Like,
what's the New Zealand heavyweight weightlifter?
David Liddy.
Yeah, David Liddy. So literally, the day that I did that pyramid, there's a video of him snatching what I lifted. I was like, meanwhile,
it's nuts. Yeah, it's crazy.
And like 170. Who's the Lithuanian fella? 170.
Lithuanian or the Georgian guy?
Georgian, yeah.
Lasha. I can't pronounce the last name.
He literally muscle snatches 170. Like it's unreal.
It's crazy, yeah. But I guess these are the best of the best of the best. Right?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. But I guess it's fine. Like it doesn't matter what you lift as long as you're lifting. Yeah. I think coming back to why we do things. Personally, for me, I just want to be like, because I stopped weightlifting for a year. But I thought, hey, this is a really cool hobby. I can do weightlifting. Not many people can do weightlifting. Just keep doing them. And I think eventually when I become a master's, I don't know, like I can still have that technique and then become the world's best master. But even that's competitive. That's difficult. There's some pretty good masters out there. But we could represent New Zealand at a world masters.
Yeah. What was hold on, I'll just try to find it. I put it in my newsletter as well.
I appreciate you reading the newsletter, Ryan. It was the last one. Thank you.
No, it's always good. I enjoy it, and I laughed when you said, they seem to be monthly, and I was like, yeah, that's the sound of me. So Bert Soren, owner of Soren X, well, his dad started it, but he's the person that runs it now. Exercise equipment. He was, I think he went to the Olympics for hammer throw.
Yeah.
And so this is what he was saying. He said, because he had put up a video of him in a really nice catch position, and I was like, "Oh, that's really good." And he said, "I was having, this is the type of friends that you want around yourself." I was having a conversation with Jocko, being Jocko Willink. They've made gear for Jocko. Here or two ago, he was talking about some specific lifts. I asked him if he was still doing snatches. He said, "Yes, I'll do them regardless of weight because I don't want to ever submit the movement. If I stop doing them, I won't be able to do them. I've been chewing on that for a while. So I'm going back and doing some of the things that I used to be able to do easily and at a high level. And although the weight is so much lighter, I have to remember to keep hitting those positions or one day I won't be able to."
Yeah, true. You lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah. That's what, have you read Peter Attia's book, Outlive?
No, I haven't. No. So yeah, he has but I think I know what you're talking about. He has like a section where he talks about you need to be able to do these things at this particular age, right? Else you're just useless. Yeah. Or not useless, but you just, I don't know, what does he say?
No, so it's like the idea of the centenarian Olympics. If you want to compete in the centenarian Olympics, like getting off the ground.
Oh, the centenarian Olympics. Yeah.
So it's how would you like to live in your last decade of life? And so if say that's 100, you want to be able to get off the ground without assistance. You want to be able to hold a grandchild or great grandchild above above your head. Then you need to be able to do certain things at 60. So like people in there want to be able to still ride a bike in their 70s or 80s, and they need to be climbing mountains in their 60s type thing. So he brings up data on like how VO2 max declines, how strength declines over that time. And so again, back to, well, why do you lift weights in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s? It's like, because I want to have that muscle mass later in my life, so I'm steady and don't fall and all those things. Let alone the fact that having that muscle mass is like an awesome sink for glucose. It's massively metabolic, so it's going to mean that all your mitochondria is working better, that you're turning over your lipids and stuff better, and you'll just overall be healthy. And so, then you can start to like live your diet around that, like boosting choline, boosting protein, you know, all that sort of stuff as well. Like what is my goal physically now so that I'm sturdy later in life is some cool ideas.
Okay, no, that's good. It's kind of a holistic, that gives you a purpose behind doing things, right? Because I think I probably went to the gym just because I wanted big legs or to look good, right? And kind of like, that's pretty dumb. It becomes really stupid 30s, 40s, 50s, right? You don't really care. Like, I don't know, some people don't really care. I guess looks don't matter that much, right? Or being like the biggest guy. You just want to be someone who's mobile, strong, and you kind of want to do these things for your future self, like what do you call it, the centenarian Olympics?
I know, the centenarian, so 100
centenarian. Oh yeah, centenarian Olympics. Yeah, like want to be like still having a good quality life, and that's what training does. But at the same time, you need to find training that's fun for you, right? Like if it's going to be boring, you're not going to keep up with it. Plus, there's other elements of training, right? Like if you're training with people, so there's kind of like camaraderie, the social aspect, mental well-being. I don't know if that's a big deal, but I think that for me that's a big deal. Like
it's definitely a big deal, because that's like one of the things that causes so much unrest is the lack of connection, you know. And here's a random, like, I was telling Nicole about this. I was like, I was listening to Dr. Phil talking to Joe Rogan today. It's like, what are those two having?
Really, Dr. Phil and Joe Rogan? Okay.
Yeah. but Dr. Phil's son is good friends with Joe, so that's actually that's where the connection is. But like he was talking about some scary stats, and that was to do with the teenagers. But he was just so outraged that some school districts got closed for 2 years, yet the CDC are the people that know that from 2012 back to Facebook and stuff is where mental health amongst teens was so low, and even post-teens was quite low. And the thing that was holding them together was the social connection through schooling. And to take that away from them,
physical too. That's physical connection, right? Face to face.
And to take that away from them was then taking them further off the cliff. And then, you know, then you dive deeper into like, what does it mean to be able to go to school? He was saying like child protective services are at school. Often the people that violate teens and children are family members. And so it was like, you're basically locking these vulnerable children up with their perpetrators for 2 years. I was like, oh man, this gets more and more like deep and dark.
It's hard to, because like I had a pretty good childhood growing up. It's hard to know what's going on in other people's lives. So yeah, that's crazy, Ryan. Probably worth listening to. There's actually a book I'm reading. It's called Paid For by Rachel Moran. I don't know if you've heard about it or.
No, what's the deal?
No, so Rachel Moran, she kind of talks about, so she's a prostitute, and she kind of, this book is like her personal memoir, and she kind of brings up her lifestyle. So I'm just like maybe 2 or 3 chapters in, and she talks about how when she grew up with both her parents were mentally ill. And like you're saying, with people who are locked up with their perpetrators, she says her parents weren't bad people, but then like, because if you're isolated, and you, like you said, child protection services are at school, like there are people who are teachers at school who care about children are at school. If you take that away, then people would just become children who are vulnerable become stuck in that loop and habit. So the book talks about how, like, because it's really an eye-opener to people who grew up in different backgrounds, right? I guess you and me, middle class background, pretty happy family. We're not too rich that our parents aren't in the house. We're not too poor where our parents are struggling to feed us. We have this kind of sheltered view of life versus we don't see what other people have to go through. yeah, it's like you said, like children who are locked up with their perpetrators, we wouldn't see that. You know, we wouldn't think that. Because if I was thinking school was shut down, it'd be like a 2-year holiday for me, right? But then for some people, it's terrible. So, yeah, it's eye-opening.
Yeah, and that's where it'd be interesting to, you know, it's probably a bad experiment when you get it past ethics. Like, for middle class people, what would be the outcome of 2 years isolation from school? Like, I'd be fascinated to know what I would have done with myself. I think I would have gone crazy in a different way. Like,
yeah,
I can't sit still, so I don't know. I don't know how. Like, it was bad enough. Like,
outside.
well,
I think
the first one I was
occupied probably for sure.
the first one I was so lucky.
Yeah.
I went to my mate's place and I was at his farm, and so I was on farm work every day and podcasting.
Nice, yeah, amazing.
But you know those like sliding door moments. The weeks leading up to that, I was looking at like one-person apartments in Hastings, and fuck, I was so glad I was not living there.
Yeah, man, it must be. Oh well, it depends on how long the lockdowns were for, right? First one was 1 month.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah,
was
and
it
then
month and a half.
month and a half. Oh, but it depends. Like a lot of things were shut down, right? Yeah, that's another thing too. Like as an optometrist at the time, you could just go back to work. The job security was okay. Yeah, it's just that lack of understanding.
I didn't go. I didn't go back. I didn't go back in level 3.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so I ended up having like 2 months.
Okay,
maybe longer. Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, so it's pretty shocking. And coming back to the exercise, do you think a lot of people? It seems like to me everyone exercises to a very high degree. Do you think that's the case? That the average person is lifting weights, or like what's going on, and why? Why do people drop off?
Yeah.
And is it hard to? It's like, another thing I'm worried about, Ryan, is like, let's say you get into a relationship or something. Like I'm single right now, I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
Let's say you get into a relationship, it's a lot harder to do what you want to do, right? Like you're going to spend 2 hours at the gym, or you've got to be at home existing. So yeah, do you think why do people drop off? And is relationships a key factor for this, or is it just having a family, or what's the deal?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and it's like where do you meet your person, and how do you set your boundaries, and who are you, and what is core to you, or like what motivates you? Like, you know, is your purpose for going to the gym to look good so you can
attract the missus, you know,
attract the missus, and then it's
or mister, you know,
or whatever, attract a partner, and then it's finally done, and so then you leave that all behind. Or
and then you just
or is that something that's core to you? Like, again, back to like being so lucky growing up. Like my mum swam, she coached swimming. My dad coached rowing. Mum and dad both rowed. My auntie and uncle were involved with softball. Like, I was
active family.
Yeah, my granddad was still a swimming coach when I started swimming, and my grandpa, had been a rugby coach. He'd been a rugby league coach. He'd played rugby for Otago and rugby league for Otago, and like was still involved with horse racing, even though that's tell you all about horse racing, standard breed harness racing. But he was involved with something and was
active.
Yeah, and he was passionate about sport. And he came to us. Like I remember one Christmas when we were playing softball, we got a softball set for Christmas, and we all went out we had a paddock, and we played a game of softball. And like my grandpa like flicked his hat around backwards, and he was fully serious.
Yeah, oh, wow.
Like it's no surprise that competition's like my key strength is because of that upbringing and that type of vibe. So like sport and activity to me is just part of living. And so
you don't even think about it, right? It's just like who you are. Okay.
Yeah, like what am I? If it's not what am I doing today, it's what am I doing tomorrow? type vibe. So yeah, and for my daughter and for my stepdaughter, it's like, well, we're like, you know, what are we doing this term or year or whatever? Like they're both involved with dancing, and like we push them to learn to swim. Like having trained at a young age, I'm not so sure about training, but being competent in swimming is an enjoyment.
Keeping it fun, right? Like if you win, children. Okay.
Yeah. So that is interesting. But I don't know if you still remember the trying to build a rapport. It's like, what are you into? And the amount of people that just look at you funny, you're like, oh, okay, so
Netflix.
Do we live? Do we live a real lucky life that we have?
Yeah, I think we do. So the first question. the average person is probably not exercising as much as they should, right? That's true, false?
True.
The average person, like, true, okay. Like, most people are active in high school and they just sort of stop university. The reason for that could be they're working too many hours.
It starts in high school.
High school, okay, yeah. There's just more distraction. There's more like, I can just go home and watch Netflix, relax. I can order takeout.
I understand it's got worse too. Like, so,
okay, so yeah, why is it? Why are people just not active anymore?
yeah, that'd be really interesting to ask high school sports facilitators and stuff.
Also,
like
it starts in high school. The inactivity starts in high school, not ends. Because I thought high school would be like, that's where all school sports stop, and then
big time. Like,
really hard.
Again, I remember growing up at the rowing club and like so many kids being involved with sport from all the high schools in Invercargill, and then my older brother's sort of cohort going through. Two of those went to the Olympics, and Nathan Cohen and Storm Muru, and then in my cohort, Jadu went to the Olympics, Eddie Dawkins went to the Olympics. They're all people that I went to school with.
That's incredible, Ryan.
Yeah, and then my younger brother, like he won the national single, and like he had a group of people rowing with, and I think Hayden Cohen was in the New Zealand rowing team for a while, and so like there's some family, it's often the case, like some family that went through the school, and then when my younger brother's sent for him, he's trying to get like people involved in rowing, like this is a really great sport,
It's for fun, right? Or like
that's right. As Eric Murray says, you get to go away from school for a week, and it's really hot.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
Really hot boys and girls, and like her, like, it's fantastic.
Yeah, great motivator.
Yeah, but
especially from an all boys school, right? Okay.
Yeah. Or this is co-ed school, and like Eric Murray went to Pukekohe High as well, co-ed school. Like, it's just like a great place to be. But maybe like you hear like the societal thing about people questioning their sexuality or questioning their motivation and their purpose in life, and memes out there that teenagers are just so petrified of climate change, so why would they bother doing anything? You're like, what are the second and third order effects of all of this stuff? Like, if everyone's non-binary, well, then why do you need to go to an event where there's hot boys and girls? Because I don't care about that at all. And there's a party at the end of that. I don't drink, and I don't socialize, and I'm socially awkward because of this spectrum of diagnosis. And it's like, well, you're just weird, and actually everybody is weird. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like that's very much overgeneralizing, but and memifying it. But you can sort of, you could use that to explain it, and if it continues that way, how bad does it get?
Okay. Do you think? Okay. Should we focus on like young men in particular? Because I've been reading up on like young men. Like there's a book called Boys and Men by Richard Reeves. I don't know if you heard about it. So it talks about how basically the men at the top are doing very well, but young men in like kind of the average zone aren't doing so well. It's been a while since I've read the book, so I'll try and recollect.
What metric though?
What metric? So one example is on income. So but back then, university was mainly men, right? Mostly men go to university. And now it's sort of swung, like now, like currently, there's more women in university than men. Young men perform worse academically in schooling. So that has knock-on effects. So when we're looking at the workplace, there's more displaced men. A lot of men don't work, tend to stay at home for longer, aren't doing particularly well, like the average man. Like he puts it down to a few factors in society. So lots of things have changed. So obviously bringing women into the workplace has been a great thing, but the women have far outpaced men in university and in the workplace now. That's like to be the case. So like obviously the men at the top are doing really well, but the average man isn't doing very well. That's kind of like to understand that strata is really important.
Yeah.
And there's other things happening. So one example is the free trade agreement. So Richard Reeves talks about how the fact that most jobs getting shipped, like manufacturing jobs, which tend to be more male dominated, are being shipped over to overseas countries. So like you can imagine a whole group of people who occupy these jobs can't work in those jobs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some other factors include, like, there's not a lot of, like, there's support for women getting into STEM, which is good. But there's no support for men getting into what he calls HEAL type jobs. So that's health, education, administration, and I can't remember what L stands for.
Law?
So could be law, I'm not sure.
Well, like legislative.
Law's pretty male dominated, maybe, yeah. So like think about male nurses, right? Not many male nurses. Think about male teachers teaching primary school, kindergarten. Like, do you see many male teachers? No. So imagine like you're a young kid and you're a young boy. What do you look up to? You know, when you first grow up. You know, when you're early stages of life, most of your teachers will be women. You don't see a male role model. And with like it's kind of odd to see like males in those particular jobs, where it should be kind of normalized in that case. Like these are occupations that men could go into, but there's no support for that. So that's kind of like a very generalized overview of like the situation that Richard Reeves brings up. So I think this is like an issue that would be something that'll happen to us, like not us, but like our children or the younger generation. Like when I talk about not many people going to the gym, not being physical, like, do you think a lot of young men are like in a situation?
Yeah, having
kind of lost hope. And imagine, like, sorry to interrupt. And like, imagine not having any opportunity, you kind of lose hope. Yeah. It's not about like you can't pull yourself up by the bootstraps anymore. Like, you actually are stuck, like, because there's a system that is against you, or there's systemic problems that don't allow you to succeed. We're lucky, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a true sentiment. I don't know if people will agree with that. I don't know if you can get shot for saying that. So
there'll be a fair amount of element of truth to that. And like with the like primary school, early childhood thing, there's that case where some psychologists got some kids to say that they were raped by the primary teacher, and I think the same thing has happened with primary schooling. And so it's just been, and it must speak to the way males think about it. Like, I'll just withdraw from that. I'm not going there. I don't want to be that finger pointed at me.
Yeah, there's stigma towards like young men in those fields, right? There's a stigma towards it.
Even yourself, like in optometry, if there's a young woman that comes to me that is not with a friend or a guardian, the door stays open.
Yeah, exactly right. That's the totally case. Or like, there's some situations like you give a young girl or even young child, and parents like, oh, it's fine, they can just go in without me. But like, no, you're coming.
Yeah, hard out.
Yeah, with the parent. Yeah, no joke about it. So
I always frame it that often parents have questions afterwards, and it's just good if you're there to hear it. Like, that's how I get around it. But the real reason is for everyone's safety. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's to like have witness that this is there's none of that, and because those situations play in your mind, and like it's sad that the world is like that. It's really awful, and so as I was saying, it must speak to the male's protective psyche that they're just like, nah, it's not even going to be involved with it. And so then, like, but then I don't know if traditionally there was more men in early childhood, and I think there was in primary school, but then also the way that teaching has been formalized, like does that mean that men don't make it into the teaching qualification? Like back when it was like churches and stuff that were educating our children, and that obviously had its problems.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so to get around that problem with formalized education is education degrees, and then again this like still it's weird. Like feminists are probably quite right in that the patriarchy of it is that the man is a breadwinner and all that sort of stuff. So therefore, these professions aren't, despite being hugely important, are held in esteem. And again, it's by what metrics? And it's
exactly
it becomes the tying the self-worth up in the income and the ability to support the family, and so therefore I can't waste my time and teach it. And this is someone who was brought up by a secondary school teacher, which was great because he had all these holidays and we got to do all these awesome things. And like,
Yeah.
as I said, like I grew up going to the river and he'd be coaching rowing, and like in the school holidays we'd go to the high school, we'd muck around in the school gym and throw frisbee around and basketball and kick soccer ball around in a big gymnasium and run around and hit golf balls and all that sort of shit. So yeah, but it's just interesting. Like they said, that was high school, so it's slightly different when it comes to primary school. Yeah, there's always, well, not always, it's often female teachers, and as you say, early childhood is extremely rare to see a male. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and Richard Rees, he brings up the point where like I guess young men aren't supported in schooling, so that could be for a number of reasons. Because they're not supported in schooling, they don't do as well. And if you don't do as well academically, obviously your prospects minimized, you know, as you get older.
Does he communicate his bias?
He is a dad, and I guess he does. But he just gives us. I think his book is just an argument. It's just a awareness piece, right? Putting his awareness out there. And like, I was watching an interview where he was promoting his book. He even says like he was kind of advised not to even write this sort of topic up because it's just too difficult to bring it up. But I think it's been well received. And like some other points he brings up. I can't remember what I was going to say, Ryan. Damn. But he talks about something to do with the like how. Okay, yeah. Sorry about we brought up the patriarchy, and when you brought up the fact that there's like that personal pride about what you do. Things are so expensive these days, right? Like owning a house is difficult. I feel like you need to be that breadwinner. You need to have that really really good job. Else, what's the point? Just give up. You can't just settle for an average job anymore. You got to be like a really high performer to just be anyone. Which really, it doesn't really have to be the case, right? Because I guess men and women can, if you're going to be a heterosexual couple, men and women can both work, right? And like it doesn't matter who earns the most, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're a married couple, you're one person, you're one family.
Yeah.
But then there's that kind of in the back of the mind, the man should be earning more, like the patriarchy, the breadwinner, right? That kind of gnaws at people's minds. So Richard Rees really brings up the point that the role of woman has changed, right? From being the homemaker to someone who can earn, like be in the workforce, earn really well, do well in the workforce, but the role of the man really hasn't changed. Like think of a stay-at-home dad, or just the guy who's got a normal job, doesn't earn as much as the wife, but still contributes economically, does things around the house. Like that really hasn't changed, right? Well, what do you think? Like, do you think maybe it is changing? Like, do you think the guy still has to be the macho man? He can't be like stay-at-home dad. Oh, I'm going to take a year off to look after the kids. What do you think?
Yeah, that becomes like a special situation, eh? And like I do know some guys that have been, and that has been able to do that, and it has been off the effect of their wife or their partner being in a better position, which shows that it is amazing and it is possible. Yeah, I had, on the flip side of that, I had the discussion about the level of expectation that women now feel as well. Like, I think they have on their mind that that they have a need to be a family, they have a need to have a high-paying job, and they have a need to have the house. They've also got introduced the need to have overseas holidays and flash cars. It's almost like they've adopted this stereotypical patriarchy mind of like
expressing materialism, like expressing
materialism.
Because like that's how you get friends. Like if your house isn't as good, like you always think to yourself, it doesn't matter how what car I drive, but then people judge you, right? Like you want friends, right? And some friends judge you what car you drive. Unfortunately, it's the case. Like we have those split second. I hope I'm wrong, but with those split second decisions to think about things. You really bring up a good point about expectation, Ryan. Like it's in the Barbie movie when like America Ferrera gives her speech about expectation on a woman.
Yeah.
But, like also, there's a book called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and I'm a really big fan of Sheryl Sandberg because she's because like she at first she's a business lady, right? She's so if you don't know who she is, she worked at Google and Facebook before they were big companies. So she started at Google, worked with Eric Schmidt himself. Like, even before that, she worked with can't remember who, but in the US Treasury. You have to look that up, fact check me. But she worked in that kind of area, then moved on to Silicon Valley startups. One of them happened to be Google when it was very small. And then she moved over to Facebook, where she became the chief financial officer. So basically number 2 at Facebook, right? There's Mark Zuckerberg, then you got Sheryl Sandberg. So she's very well accomplished. And she writes a book called Lean In, and she talks about the expectations women face. So her decision behind working at Google was a peculiar one, because she kind of says, like, a lot of women pick jobs that are mainly for stable jobs, rather than like a career where you could take a risk. Because the reason you want a stable job is, like, you can have children, you can take time off to have children.
Did she view it that she could exit to something bigger again? Is that what you're trying?
What was that? Sorry.
So she could have done that role to prove that she could do something bigger again. So that would be like a catapulting job, as opposed to a stable job.
Yeah, well, sort of, in a way. Like, it's more the reason she chose Google the risky job, like, because Google wasn't a big company, it wasn't set to be as big as it is now. Like, imagine just doing a random startup that may just fail in the future, and then that's your job gone, right? Like, the advice that she gives is, like, if you go for a company that's small, you're going to learn a lot, and that's going to be more valuable than a stable paycheck. But then she talks about the dilemma most women face. Like, you have to pick a stable job so you can have children. So that means you don't pick the best job, you pick the job that's just good enough. So, like, even from then, you're kind of at a disadvantage, because, like, if you're a guy is not thinking about, am I going to have kids, or am I going to have a career? They can just pick having a career and having a family. Versus women always have the dilemma between family or a career. They have to compromise, which is like what men don't have to do. So at the beginning, they're already at a disadvantage. But it comes back to the expectation too, because they're expected to now it's a case where there's expectation to have a great career, but also be a great family, like be a great mum as well. And the two seem very, like, mutually exclusive. Like, you can't be good at both. That's an expectation, high expectation. So, like, she has examples of where like, because she was busy working, like, there'll be other mums there who kind of knew everything about all the other kids in the class, like, but she wasn't that mum. But she did, because she wasn't that mum, she felt bad.
Yeah.
And she had that guilt. So yeah, I guess she carries that burden. There's like, I feel, I could be wrong, a lot of men or dads don't carry that burden. They want to be there for their kids, but they don't have to remember everything, right? And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like, usually the first few years, guys kind of not very useful, right? They're basically the butler, right? They're basically the butler for the wife and the mum and the child. But eventually the father's role becomes important later on. That's nothing too, Ryan. Like, do you think there's more single parents children growing up these days, or not really? Because that's another thing too, right? Like, if you don't have a father figure in your life, how do you know what it is to be a man, or you don't have that kind of influence?
Yeah, it's I think there's good statistics about that. I don't have to think about that. Yeah,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like, I don't live with my daughter.
Yeah,
there is another male there.
Yeah.
But yeah. So whereas in this household, I'm a stepfather, and so again, I'm a male influence there. But both our girls are very lucky that they have good connection with their biological father as well. So yeah, and that's the goal for me, and that's the goal for helping my stepdaughter, maintain, because my daughter says to me all the time, like, "You're my favorite daddy," and I was like, "Well,
that's cool. That's really cool.
I'm your only daddy."
yeah.
But that it's that narrow line of not diminishing anybody, because you want I want my daughter to have trust and support in everybody that's around her, so that she can have the best life she can have, and have the confidence and the safety net to try things, which is a tough balance, because it becomes out of control, like that whole, like, father figure idea of, like, well, how would I like my daughter to be brought up? It's out of my control. When she's with me, she understands those boundaries and what are our values, and how do we want to live our lives. So yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, the term, a bit like all this stuff, it has so much nuance to it. it's easy to talk about in generalities and in every
Yeah,
situation
exactly right.
is
We're
separate.
breaking all the rules here today.
No, it's good. It's good because when
Yeah.
you like look at it as a society and like what could explain this,
Yeah.
like we're talking about, is it early childhood? Is it primary school? Well, what are the situations that have meant that that's in place? Is it how early childhood was thought of in the past? Is it the formalization of the education of early childhood and primary teaching, or is it the fact that there's major cases where men have withdrawn from that career because they're too scared of being accused of sexual assault when they haven't? That's like a simple
Yeah,
idea, but
exactly.
there's probably an element of truth that it won't be the whole story.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's cool. Hey,
exactly, man.
you're exploring hobbies, eh? Like,
Yeah, I'm trying to, yeah. So I'm just
yeah.
using this time that I have right now to do all that. Yeah.
What do you think about these external? This These started when you were in optometry and weren't necessarily connecting with it, right?
No, okay. So, which hobbies in particular?
Like
See, weightlifting
flying,
was one. Flying, yeah, that was something I started. We'll start with weightlifting. I did that when I was in
at
university.
uni, yeah.
Yeah, keep going with it. Flying is another one. So I started that a year when I first graduated. I tried flying microlights. This is in Rangiora near
Yep.
Christchurch. Did that for 6 months. Kind of just fell off. I think it was just too hard to get there. Kind of got scared of flying because we did some certain activities like one was stall recovery. So that's basically
Oh,
you fly the plane and it just drops. So that kind of scared me. I think threw me off. Since moving back home, I really wanted to get my just like I'm going to commit to it. PPL. This is the time. It's never going to happen. It will happen, but just commit to it. Yeah, so
what field
I
do you
started that
fly
here.
in?
It's in fielding, so there's
Yeah,
a aviation, what's it called, aerodrome there. It's uncontrolled airspace, so that
yeah.
means basically there's no control tower. Yeah, so that's been fun. I started that a year ago in May, and I've gotten up to solo. So I'm flying the circuit. That's basically, yeah, a few weeks ago I got that milestone. That's basically you just fly the plane. Obviously you're supervised, like the instructor's like sitting in the school, and you're kind of just doing some circuits, taking off, flying downwind, landing again. So I'm up to that stage, but yeah, that's a hobby I've been into. External rewards, yeah, that's nothing. Like we live in the Instagram world now, Ryan. Like,
Mm.
it's cool to be able to share this sorts of things, in people. So I don't know. Like I believe I'm doing it for myself. It's something cool I want to do, but I question that all the time. Yeah, so that's one hobby. What
Pole
else?
dancing.
Pole dancing, yeah, it's another risque one. So this is me being. I really want to be like. I hate stereotypes. Even though we just talked about stereotypes this past hour, I hate stereotypes, and I just want to be different. And that's what pole dancing means to me. It's something I can. Not a lot of guys do it, right? It just puts me out there. Plus, it also kind of comes back to like you were talking about training, why we train. So weightlifting, the reason I did weightlifting, not doing regular gym or powerlifting, is weightlifting is like a combination of strength, flexibility, power, speed. It's hard, right?
Mm.
Same with pole dancing. Not a lot of guys do it, very risque, but it's also a combination of flexibility, strength, body. And it's different to gymnastics because you got to look good and ride a pole. You got to be graceful. You got to dance. You got to express yourself. So yeah, I did a showcase December last year. That's something I would never do in my life. I would never perform in front of stage in front of people. And that was like an unreal experience. So it's just getting out of that comfort zone. But again, I don't know if I'm doing this because of Instagram, the Instagram world we live in, like trying to build a CV. I just hope I'm doing these things because I want to. Another hobby I picked up too is jiu-jitsu as well. So that could be from
Yeah.
Joe Rogan influence. But I think it's important to obviously be strong, have a good body, flexible, graceful, but also be able to defend yourself. That's kind of, or I don't know, with jiu-jitsu, obviously like if you get punched in the face, it's pretty hard to dodge that. But like you can, it's a great dial for aggression. I'm someone who's not very aggressive.
Mhm.
So with jiu-jitsu, I can always build up that aggression when I need to.
Is
Yeah.
it instilling you with some confidence?
I think it is. Yeah, it definitely
Mhm.
is. I feel like I would never get into a fight. Those situations you never ever want to be in. Like you kind of want to avoid it. But I remember I was in India. Yeah, like I felt more comfortable being in big crowds. Like I
Yeah.
always didn't like big crowds, and like I kind of knew what to do to kind of get pushed past people rather than, or like if I need to get somewhere, like because when you go to temples, for example, these are really big queues.
Mhm.
And sometimes people will try and jump in front of you or like walk in front of you. But like I felt more confident in the fact I could just hold my space and push myself and protect my mum at the same time. So yeah, there've been benefits to my life.
That's really cool.
Like I'm just doing too much, man. I think I'm just doing 7 days a week. There's no rest day. But I just take it easy. You know, that's why a coach is really great. Like you can communicate with your coach what you do. Like I do these activities, and that's why we scale down the weights. And like, no, as long as you keep your ego in check, then it should be fine. Like obviously I'm going to see people lift heaps of heavier weights than I would. There's people around here who are going to progress faster, but I'm doing a lot more, you know, other ways. So I've got to just be kind to myself, I guess. Plus ego is another thing too. You learn jiu-jitsu. Like there's some really great kind of sayings friends have said to me. Like I used to always be bothered about getting submitted. Like I'd always lose, get submitted. And like, it really got to me. And my friend, one of the guys I trained with, he said to me like you don't, like the background most people have, you don't know their background. Most of them could come from like a fighting background. The only journey that matters is your journey. And then when you roll, so rolling is like sparring. If you're trying to win, you've already lost. That kind of blew my mind. Yeah. So that kind of gave me a new appreciation for doing things. Like you're not trying to be the best, right? You're just trying to have fun and enjoy things. So yeah, here's a great book. Be reading this book here. So
I was going to get to Ali Abdel. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's more about like not doing more, but doing things that are fun, which I do question too, because I'm doing quite a lot. So
I was, before we dive into Ali Abdel, I was going to say to you,
yeah,
did you catch the reel I did from my chat with Dave Galbraith? And he was talking about how passionate people don't burn out, they just rest. When you're saying like the sort of throwaway line of I'm doing too much, well, no, you just find that you're living your passion, which I think is really cool, Shivan. And
thank you.
And that you know, we've spoken about societal generic sort of things. Oh, you're too busy, you'll burn out. Well, no, I'm doing things I'm passionate about, and if I get tired, I can rest. But you know, you can't take that away from me. And I think again, us living a life that we're passionate about, and that's where you're an example of. I'm doing something I'm good at, but am I passionate about it? I don't think I am. How can I leverage my knowledge and my skills, or this is a great safety net to allow me to move into something I'm passionate about, and like it took time, but you're proof that like, poor mate, it's really cool.
Thanks, Ryan. No, that's really heartwarming. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for kind of bringing me up in that way. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I never thought about that. You can kind of forget. Yeah, that's another thing I realized too, Ryan. Like you kind of forget the challenges you had in the past. I guess they just disappear. Like, and the kind of new problems sort of surface, arise.
Yeah,
I don't know if you experienced that. Yeah.
There was a good. I think it was Tim Ferriss I was listening to, and he was. No, it must be Chris Williamson actually. Who was quoting Alex Hormezi,
Yeah.
and he was saying that you've already surpassed the goals you thought you were happy for. And I was like, "Oh!" I ended up writing that down. Yeah. And that's exactly like you say. You like forget about the challenges that you worked through because you're on to the next ones. And like, yeah, that's where that real sort of buzzword comes in of gratitude for what you've done and what you've achieved comes in. And you're like, oh, you know, there's actually a lot to that. You know, you can't hold anger or disdain or jealousy when you're holding great gratitude in front of you. It's really cool.
Exactly. I mean, trying to get into meditation more. There's this meditation kind of mantra or quote. It talks about a person who's anxious is thinking about the future. The person who's depressed thinks about the past. The person at peace is thinking about the present.
Person at peace, is it?
At peace, sorry. The person at peace is thinking about the present. So kind of another way I think about it too is like just think about what's happening now. But also, yeah, it's good to be grateful of what you had in the past. Journaling is great, right? You can always like look back on like the hardships you've had and just you take it for granted when they disappear. And I think another thing too, Ryan, I really want to like why I'm doing so much or why I think it's important for us to experience new things. One, getting out of the comfort zone, but I think two, we should always be learning, learning new things. And I think my boss, my current boss, he's been such a great kind of mentor to me, and like he's given me kind of good life lessons, not just with like the job working at, but like his advice is for the job, but it kind of extends to other things in life. It's about being a generalist versus being a specialist. So you can specialize in one thing and be an expert in that area, but you're probably better off being a generalist where you can combine kind of two skill sets together or different things together.
Yeah.
It's like jiu-jitsu has taught me so much about, like going into win, you're already lost, having fun. No one's, for example, when you lose in rolling, no one's keeping the score, right? So like if you go out there and screw up, only you really care about the failure, not anyone else. So, and that's something I struggle with too, is like putting myself out there. And because I always think about like, this is cringe, or like when I was doing a lot of YouTube stuff or like Instagram stories or like putting content out there, very cringe. It's like, oh, this is very like, but no one's really thinking about me, the spotlight effect.
Yeah. Did anybody ever say that to you? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
No one's ever.
Yeah.
One person did, like, but it was coming at a place of love, right? He just said, like, I think you're just oversharing a bit too much on the gram, so like just tone it down a wee bit. But he was just looking out for me. So no one's actually ever said, yeah, I don't know how you feel about that, Ryan. Like, what was it like publishing your first podcast?
Yeah, again, like those things that you like don't even remember. Yeah. And again, it was like this scenario, the timing of it all. Like I was doing a bit like you with Ali Abdul. Like I was doing something to try and push myself and try to get my face out there. Like so, I was in part studying it to get away from ultra level marketing because I didn't like that format. And then on the other part of it, I was hoping to have my ideas reach more people than just the one person at a time in an optometry chair. And now I've realized that it's eternal. Like in my metrics, it'll show the top 3 played podcasts on the day, and then it'll give you the metrics for the day. It's so surprising when you see like these ancient ones come up, or you clearly notice when someone's found the podcast, because you just get these spikes of people who have gone through the whole catalog and downloaded what they want to listen to or what they find interesting, and you're like, oh, that's really, really buzzy. And so I worked really hard for like those 2.5 years going every week.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
And like, it must have been just like the come down of getting married the other day. I was like, maybe I stopped the podcast. And I was like, nah, there's still people.
You don't stop. Okay. What, if you hit the master, you never stop. That's why I learned with, when I went on my first solo for flying, he said to me, this is a cool milestone.
Yeah,
right?
that was cool. Yeah.
But yeah, you never stop learning. Always be self-critical. You need to improve your landings, X, Y, and Z. Like that's with life, right? Like even though you surpass like that peak, there's always going to be challenges in the future, and you always have to keep continuously getting better and improving. So don't get complacent. In other words, but keep the podcast going, right?
No, and I will. It's just like one of those moments of like, we get like such a euphoria. Like Nicole asked me, like, how did you rate that? And I was like, well, it was awesome, because that truly was like one of the greatest days of your life. They say that it's getting married and having children. Yeah. Like I would already have my daughter, and I was like, that was so up there, like with that. And so to then to be lying in the bed on like Tuesday night, like I hadn't gone back to work yet, and be like, oh, do I even need to do that? Like it was just one of those like melancholic moments, like, oh, nothing else is important in life. This is so wonderful. It was like one of those big times in life where you're like on the other side of it, you're like, wow. All this other shit's so worthless.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
But no, like podcasts, like showing up to work, training, and all that sort of stuff. And that's the sort of day-to-day stuff that satisfies and instills you with like, smaller peaks. Sometimes you get to be right up on the top of the tallest mountain looking at the biggest thing, and you're just completely overwhelmed. But then, as you go along the journey, like you say, with hobbies, you've got to find that stuff that gives you those awesome boosts.
Exactly right. And I guess, you have to be, because like with jiu-jitsu, it's going to be the belts. The belts are like the key, like obviously getting a blue belt, your purple belt, brown belt, black belt, like those are kind of milestones. But then like, you shouldn't focus, like even like pole's the same thing. Pole, we've got levels in pole dancing, like you've got level 1, level 2, level 3. Like we shouldn't obsess about the results. So like enjoy it when you have it, when you get those achievements, but then we shouldn't obsess about them so much. Like we should just try and get better for the sake of getting better. Does that make sense? Like the motivation should be intrinsic.
Yeah. What was the last thing you celebrated?
The solo, my birthday. The solo was kind of like what I celebrated. That was kind of, it was unexpected as well. Like we were just doing some circuits with the instructor. He's like, okay, I'm going to pop out now. You're going to fly a circuit. So yeah.
And what did you do? What did you do to celebrate?
What did I do? I just
you
I
wrote
took
about
a photo.
Yeah,
And that's a celebration, man. Took a photo and told my friends, family, telling you. So yeah, that's kind of like that's a celebration.
Yeah.
Can't remember if I did anything specific. Yeah, but that was a celebration. Yeah, just enjoyed it. Like enjoyed the feeling. Had a smile on my face. So yeah.
And Adelaide, like you went out for dinner, right? You went for walks and stuff.
What do I do in Adelaide? Yeah, so Adelaide, that was work. The company I work for is based in Adelaide.
Yeah.
You know that. Yeah, I enjoy building relationships with the team because like obviously I work remotely. And when you work remotely, you don't meet your team face to face. So this is kind of a good opportunity to meet people face to face. Plus also a person in Palmerston North. Okay, I get he's kind of like my mentor here in Palmerston North in the software development sort of community. So yeah, shout out to Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, so shout out to Jagger too. He's the dude. He's the man. So Steve, basically, he told me like with programming, try and meet the people who use your software. Like it's gonna just make your motivation to write software really like explode. And that's what gets you really excited about what you're building. And then I got to meet the people who use like the tools that I'm building. So it's not like it's completely I'm just writing code to pass time. I'm actually building something for a purpose. And my boss says that too. Like it's good to have autonomy in the work you do. That means control over what you want to do, but also that purpose. Like it feels like what you're doing, what you're building is meaningful. That's really important as well. So yeah,
that's cool. So where's Ali Abdul at now? He's not a doctor anymore, right?
No, he's not a doctor. So he switched careers like into I think full-time content creation, writing books, doing podcasts, filming YouTube videos, doing creative things. That's kind of cool. So it's really inspiring to see. Like, cause before, like,
does he talk about medicine or health at all?
No, he doesn't. Not at all. No, not at all. I don't think he kind of talks about his experience. Like in the book, he talks about his experience as a doctor, but he doesn't actually talk about like how we talk about optometry, I guess.
Yeah.
Or like eye health. He's really just about the creative pursuit, meaning of life, sort of thing. He's kind of a philosopher, turning into more of a philosopher, which I really like.
Had he done any training courses, or had he just got?
I did part-time YouTuber Academy. That was the last time we talked.
Had Ali in medicine? Had he? Had he gone into any stream of?
Sorry. So he did. No, I think he was just 2 years in, and then never went to any specialty programs. I think he was doing. He talks about OBGYN, that kind of like field. I don't know if he was just in that kind of space for a long time, but yeah, it's kind of cool to see a guy like he seems like not a normal guy. He's obviously extraordinary, but because 30 years ago, who becomes not famous, but like you could just do your passion, like it's just like it feels like back then, 30, 40 years ago, you had strict roles or jobs you had to do. You couldn't really pursue your passion or like create your own job in a way. So very inspiring for me.
Yeah, it's an amazing hit, hey? Like out of the gazillions of content creators, this one guy, like obviously he's a high level individual. He was in medicine. He was in medicine. You don't get there by accident, but such a large pivot and to nail that too.
Yeah, and he's not just some people are just famous for like they look good or I don't know something that they have this one unique thing that they.
Do you know James Smith?
James Smith. There's probably a few James Smiths.
Yeah, that's the real shit. I've never thought about that. His name's so plain. So I think James Smith is friends with Chris Williamson, so I think that does help.
That's me. He's the PT, right?
The PT guy, yeah. He moved to Sydney away from. Again, it's timing as well. So he moved to Sydney. He was still coaching clients in the UK.
Yeah.
And then he started doing content to try and attract more of his UK clients. And he just hit the algorithms on TikTok. Boom.
Yeah. But he had something unique to offer. But there's like a lot of talentless people who are just maybe they're not talentless, but they're just like they look a certain way or they've done something like just pure luck and they're really famous because of that. But I feel like some people are just talented, right? Obviously they work hard, but they're talented. And no matter how hard you work, you can't achieve that level of talent. Like I could never sing or act
Mm.
or look good, you know. Ali Abdaal is just, he's talented, but like I feel like more of his what he did was very calculated. It was like very, he used his skills, he worked hard, like he kind of thought about the situation and like he wanted to pursue that. It wasn't like he can sing decently well, but yeah, his level of success just seems achievable versus like someone who's just talented, like a talented sportsman or a singer or a, yeah. It seems like what he did was achievable by the average person, but he just worked hard and challenged himself. Yeah.
Which is
So that's inspiring to me.
It was just kind of remarkable because it does he makes it look effortless.
Yeah.
That's like a key thing. He made it look effortless, but like you say, there's probably so much. He was very calculated in what he did and the timing and all those things that fell into place for him. And
yeah, maybe it's a bit of luck, maybe, but yeah,
to now replicate it, you kind of go, well, you're not able to, it needs to get that next moment of uniqueness, which is
exactly. Yeah, you can't just copy what's already been done, right? You've got to be unique in your own way. And I just love his authenticity as well, if you could say. Like, I think he's an authentic person. So,
and so how does the book land? How does the book land?
Okay, initially the first chapters are kind of like, okay, because I follow Ali Abdaal so much, I've already known what he's going to say, like the first part of it. But what really got me was the ending, where he talks about alignment and purpose. So that's kind of asking why we train. Like, it's easy. It's so like, you know, Atomic Habits, right? It's really easy to do something. It becomes your identity to keep going. It's not too hard to do that sort of stuff. But like, why do we do these things? You know, like why do you get up in the morning? That's really important. That's sort of answered in the book near the end of the chapters. So you kind of give, here's an exercise where you look at, because like we did like this goal setting seminar as well with like 10,000 people. It was crazy. But we talk about
like part of the book.
The book that gave you an invite to do this. It was during New Year's, like where everyone could just who bought the book or pre-order the book, we could just join this kind of 10,000 person seminar. It kind of gives you goal setting exercises. So like one will be, so just think about who, like in 10 years, what goals you have that without any restriction, money, time, whatever, what do you want to achieve? Like these really big goals. And then you kind of look at those big goals and then see if you can like merge them together or like see if this is really important to you. Why do you want to do it? And then instead of having like all these lists of goals, just eliminate most of them and put it down to 3 goals that you can break down for the year, and then make chess moves towards those particular goals. It's kind of like a backwards way of looking at goals rather than, oh, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to focus on putting on my shoes and then hopping into the car, then going into the gym and then doing my exercise. It kind of really puts that purpose. And if you have that drive, grit, and determination, you're going to do it anyway, no matter what. So it kind of like bypasses that James Clear way of doing things, which I like.
Yeah. That's how I've constructed my life a little bit. The old Simon Sinek was my
start with why.
Yeah, my influence leaving uni was that. Yeah.
It's
interesting.
But obviously, hard things are going to be hard to do, right? Hard things are hard, regardless, right?
Yeah. And it's, what is it? That luck is when preparedness meets opportunity.
Exactly right.
That's another thing. Like you say, you need that timing, but you've got to be there. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be ready. And so that's another reason why you need to keep showing up and keep doing the things, keep being prepared. Yeah, because you don't want to miss it. Imagine how, like, slight normal moments. I was saying, imagine how many opportunities go past you all the time, and like where things could be, but you're on that one life.
Exactly, man. The opportunity with iSpace, man, it was just like a post on LinkedIn that Jake Root saw. Hey, web developer, I think you should talk to Jake. You know, that's like, and then I had a project ready that I could show Jake what I built. Yeah, it's just like that opportunity, seizing that opportunity. Like it feels like, you know, I remember working on like programming all this stuff. It just felt so hopeless. It was getting to the point where my mom was like, okay, time's running up. I think just go back to optometry. Like you said, give up this dream. Like you're getting really old now. You need to like start thinking about your future. Yeah, that's kind of like stuff. I was feeling really hopeless. But I really wanted to do programming as a career. Like, and that opportunity came, and like, it's just, you're right. Like what is opportunity meets preparation. Yeah. No, I'm not talking myself up. I'm very lucky. Yeah, but like that's kind of.
But that's what we just did. What luck is. That's an example.
That's what luck is. Yeah.
No, it's
crazy.
Cool. Yeah. So like, where in the digital world, like you talk about how you're trying to really attain physical, meaningful moments in the digital world, where are people finding you now? Are you still talking about your work, or just like in the form of the newsletter?
Yeah, good question, Ryan. I don't know where I am at the moment. I think I'm Instagram at the moment. So that's
Yeah,
at Shivan_S. So
yeah.
SIVAN_S. I am on LinkedIn occasionally. Twitter, I don't use as much. Where else? Email. So my email newsletter is email.shivan.xyz. So that's email.shivan.xyz. So I am there if anyone wants to subscribe. Like I plan to kind of write stuff monthly, I guess. So that's where I'll be kind of. And like on Instagram, I'm trying to share like via stories, just like things I think about and polls and problems I'm facing. So yeah, that's
And
kind
there's
of where I am.
a body of work on YouTube, isn't there?
There is, yeah. It's getting old, but yeah, I'm sort of embarrassed about things I've said on there, but whatever. No one cares.
No, it's cool. Do you have a new way you live your life by then now? That's
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
that's
I was asked
keeping
this
you in
question
flow.
before. Yeah, to keep me in flow. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was asked this question before as well. Like, I would never change the past, right? I think everything that led me to where I am today is all the decisions and what happened to me in the past, right? So I'll never ever change that. How I live life differently, staying in the flow. I'd love to just not be distracted by things, like phone, that sort of stuff. So I'm trying my hardest, and I'm just trying to have fun. That's like the key element is having fun
Yeah,
and just and being and I try to be someone who's comfortable and secure with who I am. Just focusing on those things.
beautiful. And so, do you think then, like you say, the phone, the distractibility of some things takes you away from that authenticity of who you are, or where you are, or how you feel? Is that right?
Just doing work basically. Like, yeah, I guess. Okay, authenticity. Maybe it's the distraction is like how I think other people perceive me, because I still think it makes really important. I really care about what other people think about me, so I try and present myself in a way, the best way possible, which is kind of misleading, right? You should just be who you are. But yeah, does that answer the question right? I'm not sure.
No, well, it's open ended question, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
and it's like the idea of the question and the person's answer is to get anybody that's made it this far, and also in the reel that I post,
yeah,
to have a think about how that lands in their life. So, like
yeah,
one of those existential questions is how do I live my life? And like we
yeah.
said,
It's true,
it
man.
goes back to the question you asked me: why do we train? Like, what do
Yeah,
we do?
how do I live life? Yeah, I'm just here. I'm just trying to. I don't know. I'm really focusing on these hobbies at the moment. Just trying to do as much as I can with the body I have right now. Life always changes, right? Like I can't predict what's going to be like in a year or two from now. So I'm just going to enjoy what I can right now. I think I've been given a great opportunity. I see a counselor once a month, once every 2 months, and he said to me, for most people, life gets worse. People get old. The parents die. I was talking to a person. I do social dancing too, Ryan. That's another hobby.
Cool.
And one of the ladies there, she's a bit older. She told me like her two husbands passed away. So that's a lot of heartbreak, right? So coming
Yeah.
back to what my counselor said, life gets worse for a lot of people. Your life is good right now. Enjoy it, because it can disappear. So just enjoy. Don't worry about the future. Enjoy what you have right now. And if things get worse, you'll adapt. And then that's life. That's life experience, right? And life's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
No, that's
Yeah.
cool. Siobhan, this has been so much fun. Like,
Yeah, Ryan. Thanks. We should
yeah,
do it again sometime, or like I'd love
yeah.
to. I'd love if it was longer, but yeah, we can always do it
Like
another
we
time.
we caught up in Taupo at NZO
Yeah.
conference 2 years ago, and that was
Yeah.
too brief, which is the nature of bloody conferences. You want to, that's why people end up showing up on the second day, falling asleep because they've stayed
Yeah.
up all night talking to people with a kindred spirit. So yeah, this has been so much fun, and yeah, let's keep doing these chats and
Yeah, man.
trying to catch up in person. Because yeah, great
Yeah.
man, there, Siobhan. Cheers.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. You too, man. Thanks for having me on.
Please.